It was easy to sneak away from church because if my mom ever asked, well, prove it, what was it about? I already knew the answer. It was the same thing for me.
And I guess from your parents, did you get a sense of it being important?
Yeah. My mom was very involved in my church.
Yeah, she was a choir person.
She was a choir director.
Do you think for her it was about just the cultural value of...
Oh no, she was a devout Catholic.
She was big into loving the Lord, do you think?
Yeah.
What about your dad?
He's not as religious as my mom was.
They were both Catholic.
Yes.
There wasn't a disagreement there.
Right. Yeah, my mom was actually...
When they met, were they Catholic, or did one of them convert the other one?
No, they were both Catholic. My mom was actually raised with a Catholic father. And her mom was Protestant, but her family became Catholics. That was my grandfather's religion.
So at some point, though, in high school being ages 15 to 18.
Yeah, it's somewhere in high school.
You formally.
I started learning. I started learning to question it.
Mm-hmm. And wasn't I an influence? Because at the time,
all my friends were. Yeah, you were definitely an influence.
Because I was a big atheist.
You guys helped teach me to question it. I don't think I'd ever been presented with that option before.
Because when I was an atheist, before I obviously converted back, I don't even know if I was ever really a Christian. But what I got when I was ages 0 to 8, I was raised Presbyterian.
Mm-hmm. You did it because you were told to.
Yeah.
And you believed it because you were told to.
Yeah, I never got exactly the message of you got to get saved. But
is that your product placement?
Yeah, so, I never. And while reading the Bible, drink a.
That's good.
Yeah, so it was never because I was Presbyterian. It was never given to me there's a decision you got to make before you die. Get saved, don't get saved. It wasn't like that because I guess we weren't Baptists. But I remember just taking it for granted, like you do.
We were children.
Taking it for granted that God exists. I remember praying a lot.
Mm-hmm. I prayed.
And looking back on it, I think I was projecting my issues with my mom onto God because I remember just really wanting God to not be angry with me. I'm really sorry, God. I know that I'm bad. I just
stop yelling at me, God.
Stop yelling at me. I just really, if things could just calm down around here, God. So for me I think I remember being very vividly being 17 and I'd stopped praying. I'd kind of just fizzled out on Christianity. I was reading New Age books from my mom's New Age book collection. I was reading Deepak Chopra and the Celestine Prophecy and other stuff that Oprah would approve of.
Right.
And then I started reading Carl Sagan. Our friend Rob Larson lent me his Carl Sagan. And I think maybe this is what happened to you. For me it was just mind-blowing, the suggestion that God didn't exist.
Yeah.
I'd never really considered the possibility.
Yeah, I had never considered it. And then suddenly my friends who are a major influence are telling me, you don't have to believe this. And also I was into Kurt Vonnegut, Woody Allen. My heroes were atheists. So that made it appealing to me. So now I know how to question it. And now I know some people who I think are cool.
Yeah.
Who are
I think Kurt Vonnegut did it for Ben. For me it was Carl Sagan.
Yeah,
and Bertrand Russell.
Kurt Vonnegut was a major one.
So to me I kind of think you may be a certain kind of person like I was, had to have my childhood version of Christianity shattered so that I could be an atheist and then discover a different, more mature version.
Well, what's amazing about it is there was never a moment where anything was shattered. It was
felt very shattered.
It was a very logical.
Yeah.
I just eased into it very easily. Mm-hmm. At first you think, okay, other people have other opinions. Maybe question your own opinions, and before you know it, you're like, okay, I have a whole new way of thinking about this now.
What would you say are just formally your reasons? If you had to defend it rationally, what would you say? If someone said, why should I be an atheist? Or why is that the
I
most rational.
don't know. I don't really think in those terms. Why should you be an atheist? You don't have to be.
But
Maybe you shouldn't.
Like if someone
it doesn't work.
Like if someone said, "How do I know that God doesn't exist?" Like, because to me, an atheist, and this is a very controversial issue today, because like a lot of today's atheists want to, I think, confuse the issue. And I can answer what I would say back in the day. But I'm curious. A question I have for atheists is why not be an agnostic? Because an agnostic says we don't know one way or the other. Whereas I think an atheist says I know, or at least I have some positive reason to know that God at least probably doesn't exist. Is the lack
what
of
do people
evidence.
usually say? You look at other cultures, and they all have their own different gods. Why is it a Christian God?
It's arbitrary to. Like, they can't all be right.
And it's just so far-fetched.
Yeah, it just sounds silly. Maybe.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's why it's such an easy target for satire.
But then science, I think like people that don't believe in religion, they just put the degrees of faith that they naturally want to put in something they put in to science. So I think like a typical atheist kind of person, if they hear a scientist say like all life evolved from a single replicator 3.5 billion years ago, or that according to quantum mechanics the path of an electron is influenced by whether it's observed or not, or AIDS does whatever AIDS does. That I think that instead of believing in religion, like a secular humanist just has to use up their natural well of faith on just believing whatever scientific experts say. So I mean,
So science has the more convincing argument.
but I think that all that stuff could be seen as a far-fetched anything. Like evolution could be seen as far-fetched.
Yeah, but it makes more sense. Believing in believing in a Christian God is like believing in magic. You have to believe there's a little bit of magic in the world.
You put it that way. Sounds nice, doesn't it?
Yeah, but unlikely.
Yeah, unlikely. But I guess so. When you say unlikely, do you mean that there are just laws of nature, and that for like a miracle to happen, it would break the law of nature? Is that why it's unlikely? Like,
Okay, yeah,
well, I
you
guess
can put it that way.
Well, I guess to be a Christian, you have to believe that God raised Jesus from the dead. Like that's the main miracle. So you would say that that's just probably didn't happen because
it doesn't make sense.
Well, I mean, the words make sense. Like you can picture Jesus dead and he's alive. I guess not a logical contradiction.
How can somebody be dead and then alive?
I suppose to think
It takes a miracle.
you'd have to believe in God,
Yeah.
because the idea is that God did it
Why did God do it?
to prove to us that that was His Son and that He would die for our sins. Just to do to offer us salvation, as my spiel said. Historically, you could look and say, like, well, something happened. Like, just looking at it rationally, like a bunch of people, we have all these Christians running around. So something happened to convince these people back in, the turn of the first century, or whenever it was, 30 AD, 33 AD, something happened that made this group of guys convinced that they saw Jesus alive, to the point where all the apostles were killed and didn't recant, even facing death, and they told other people, and people seem to have a knack for believing it once they heard it, to the point where most people today believe that this guy 2,000 years ago was who he says he was.
But isn't that just born out of people wanting to explain it somehow?
For me, when I was an atheist, I would say that my reasoning was it's pretty vague. It was kind of like so many things. I guess I just thought there wasn't any evidence for it. And in the absence of any evidence, I was justified in not believing in it.
Yeah, what is it for?
Because...
Or, better question, why is God so insecure that we have to worship him? If he did create the world, why couldn't he just let it go at that?
Well, I guess the Christian answer is that we were sinners, that we had free will, and we choose to sin. And then that, because he's good and just, by his very nature requires him to punish us to the point of sending us to hell forever. So because he loves us, he sent his son, because that would cosmically balance out the scales of justice. And it's interesting, I think that if you look at, one thing the atheists say is, and that they said there are a lot of gods and you're arbitrarily picking one. But it's interesting that most theists are either Muslim or Jewish or Christian, and they all say we believe in the God of the Old Testament, of the Hebrew Bible. So it's interesting. There is sort of just the one God, really, that most people believe in for some reason. They disagree. I guess the Muslims and the Jews don't think that Jesus was his son. But some atheists like to say, everyone's an atheist in regard to all gods but one, so we should go that one further. Some atheists say that. But that one further is really the one I think it's a misleading thing to say, because the one further is the one really that's an issue with everybody. For some reason, it seems to think just the one.